And welcome to this Taskmaster Fitness live session, the Mind Body Reset, Learning to Live Beyond Pain. I'm Rachel from Taskmaster Fitness, and today I'm joined by the lovely Max Wilson, a former barrister and lecturer turned award-winning ICF accredited self-leadership coach and facilitator. Max helps high-achieving men to live with greater joy, purpose, and balance. Based here in Guildford, he works nationally and internationally, combining his personal insight and professional experience to support both individuals and teams. Known for his calm, approachable, and supportive style, Max isn't your typical alpha male coach. His work is grounded, compassionate, and deeply transformative. Max has been on his own journey with back pain and with burnout, and he's here today to share how a change in mindset and identity helped him move beyond pain and how we can learn to rebuild trust in our bodies and ourselves. So, Max, let's get into it. So, for anyone, hopefully that introduction, serves you well. But let's hear from your own words. Share a bit about what you do and the kind of coaching you're involved with.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks so much for inviting me. It's really great to be here, and it's also really great to have everyone that we have listening. So thanks for joining us today. So yeah, I am a self-leadership coach, as Rachel said. So I basically help people to become even more effective leaders of their own lives. It's not something that we're taught at school or really anywhere. If you think about our jobs, we get ad hoc training, but we're not really taught how to become effective leaders of our own lives. And that I look at across sort of three levels: externally, our external world, our relationships, our habits, our routines, our fitness, those sorts of things, but also internally, the mind, the mindset, our thinking, and then at that core level, sort of that purpose, that drive. So we look at self-leadership across those three levels, essentially.
Right. And I guess this might be what everyone else is thinking, but how do you go from being a lawyer into coaching and a self-leadership coach? What was that like?
Yeah, so I was at the bar originally, so I was like regularly in court across the country. Really enjoyed like large parts of that job, but it's very much a lifestyle. And one thing I didn't have is the self-leadership skills to support me in that process. And I think, the narrative in society when it comes to work is very much do, 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 do. And that's the zone that I was in, never really having that off. And I think I just got to a point where there's two sort of threads to it. I got to a point where I was thinking, is this actually what I want to do for the rest of my life? Does this play on all of my skill sets? Because I really liked working with people. You're in conflict quite a lot as a barrister. But also the lifestyle piece, I was regularly working late up until the evening, sitting down for hours and hours and hours on end. And when the cracks started to appear, so I had quite bad anxiety, but also real bad back pain started to come through. I had to question, changes to make in my life and whether this is what the life that I wanted. So it's sort of those two things that led me into higher education, first of all, and then from higher education into coaching and training work, which is what I do now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was a bit of a journey and a bit of a process.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And there was if you talk about identity at the beginning, there's a big identity piece because there was almost like a loss of identity. I'd spent loads of money and time and built this reputation, and then I was losing all of that, it felt like, overnight. And I think people can relate to that in different ways, right? Where we sort of lost a part of ourselves or the thing that we thought that we were. And that can be quite challenging. It's almost like that sunk ship fallacy mindset that comes up around all that. So yeah, I had to work through all of that to get to where I am now.
Yeah. Okay, well, one of the themes that Max and I wanted to go through and what we're kind of leading into nicely here is balancing different aspects of our lives. And if we just sort of dig in a little bit more, what did you notice, sort of, I guess, right at the beginning about how it began to affect you or how you began to see yourself? When did you become aware?
Yeah, I think that they're all inextricably linked. we have a symbiotic relationship between the head and our bodies. We tend to walk around as heads in the West, and then bodies in other parts. But it's a symbiotic relationship. They're connected. So I was experiencing a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of tension in my body, which was being held in the body. But I was also sitting down for hours on end without having regular breaks. So that's putting a lot of pressure on the discs in my back. So those two things combined, I think, had this um, impact on my sort of spinal system. Um, I wouldn't say it's the only thing. I think that, we have to look at these things in the round. Um, there's past events and situations which I think wouldn't have helped and I would have contributed to my back. But these two things were a large factor. Um, and yeah, I mean, I was regularly wheeling around a really, really heavy suitcase of books like on a daily basis and lifting that up onto the tube every day. So that process, even when my back pain was playing up, was not great. But I think it's only when it started to get really bad that I was like, oh, I need to do something about that. And I think it's like a lot of things in society, right? We just like whack-a-mole, it pops up and we just pop it back down again. It pops up, pop back down again until it's like screaming at us to do something about. And I think it got to that point for me where I was like, oh, I actually need to create some change here. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm always interested, um, and I hope you don't mind me asking. So could you what going back to your back pain, what were the early warning signs? What did that look like for you at the time?
Mm, yeah. It was weird because it was mainly in my leg. So I had like shooting pains down my left leg and I'd have like dull aches in my lower back, but it would manifest more as like sharp pain down my leg. So I thought it's to do with my leg. Um, and later down the line, my brother actually was diagnosed with cancer in his leg. He's okay now, thankfully. But that got me thinking, oh, do I need to get my leg scanned? So I got my leg scanned and went through these checks. They're like, we can't see anything in your leg. And I was like, well, it's not in my head. And finally, someone wise was like, oh, let's do an MRI of your back. And that showed a slip disc in my L5, which was pressing on the sciatic nerve. So the sciatic nerves run, as you know, from the bottom of the spine into the legs. So that's where the leg pain was coming from. And I was like, oh, that all makes sense now. But it was a bit of a journey to get there because I didn't know, I didn't connect the dots. So the interesting thing I think here is that the pain was manifesting in a different area to actually where it was arising like organically.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah,
And that's why I wanted to ask that question because it's really interesting how the body gives these little niggles or warning signs. And it's okay for me as a rehab specialist PT or for a physio, or we can start to piece those things together. But if you're like in the general population, like you say, you're not to know that the
no,
nerves in your spine are going to affect down your legs. So
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So what was the big thing or the big moment or how bad did it get, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. Well, I think it got worse and worse because I was like lugging heavy things. I remember I was helping my mum move somewhere and I was lugging like a massive bed up some stairs and it was getting really bad. And I was like, why is this impacting my leg? This is so weird. And then I think I was gardening and I had a pitchfork and I lifted some weeds out our pond and twisted. And that's when it first properly slipped out. Like,
Okay.
so it was like, ah. So like it locked and I couldn't move. Um, and I didn't know what had happened. And again, I sort of tried to carry on, but I literally couldn't. So what the hell is that? And then that's when I went and got my first MRI. And then ever since then, it's sort of yeah, I guess slipped or whatever, like three times. Like I've had the incidents of it popping out like that amount of times over like 5, 6 year period.
Yeah.
Um, I can
Yeah.
remember each of the times that it happened. Yeah, one was hoovering, the other one was lifting a cabinet, which was stupid.
It's mad, isn't it? So like 5 or 6, so it happened 5 or 6 times, and this is over a 5 or 6 year period.
happened, I would say 3 times in total over the 5 or 6 year period. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess to bring it back to kind of mindset stuff and how we think,
Yeah.
do you think having an identity where you're a high achiever and perhaps you've always been the dependable one, both in work and helping your mum move,
Mm.
did that kind of stuff, did that hold you back or make it harder to acknowledge what was going on?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's a real like toxic stoicism, just generally, like, that pressing on at all costs, badge of honor type thing. I think there's a level to which that's useful, right? We need a bit of grit and determination, of course, but I think it can reach toxic levels, and like in the legal sector, it's really toxic, and I know in a lot of other sectors it is as well. But just that pressing on at all costs, not coming up for air and getting a badge for the least amount of time you slept, or and it's just not healthy. But I was lost in all of that, so just doing all the time and not really stopping. um, I've heard someone describe it as like our modern day battle fatigue is like burnout and anxiety. And I think it's that just drive to be on the whole time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because this also, the word burnout is quite a new modern word, and I'm
Yeah.
always trying to figure out or understand what, because burnout is a new word, but the symptoms of it have probably always been there.
Yeah.
So, what would you say we probably used to call it?
Mm.
Would you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's heavily linked to, anxiety, for example. So for me, it more manifested in anxiety. But for other people, the symptoms are very, very different. Um, But I think it's just, you know, your brain becoming more and more tired over time and not having the space to heal and do the repair work, and just chucking more and more and more into our bucket, our stress bucket over time without having any sort of valve to let it out. So I don't know, in the past, I guess stress, but might have been the term that was used for it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think whatever label we use for it, I think we can all relate to feeling overwhelmed at some point, right? And I think it's when we're in that sustained overwhelmed state for too long, it starts to impact the nervous system and everything else.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think our next thing that we wanted to kind of touch on was around the mindset, because sometimes we've got the physical pain that you went through, and there are physical things that we take paracetamol, we get told to rest, we may have exercise prescription.
Yeah.
There's those kind of physical things that we can do and take action
Mm,
on, but mindset plays a big role in that. So I guess, where did it start for you?
mm.
When did you notice your mindset was a hindrance or a help, and what were your early steps?
Yeah. I think as the pain got worse, it started to become the whole thing, right? The whole picture. So everything was dictated by the pain. So I was cautious of like driving long distances or sitting on hard benches, or what I was eating in case it was causing inflammation. So like my whole life was governed by the pain. And that's the way that I would speak it out to people. And then so people would be like, oh, they'll get a cushion for me for the chair, or they say, oh, we can't do that because your back pain. So then they reinforce this narrative, this story that my world was limited in some way. And that's the world that I built around me. And then that impacted the pain, because then I wasn't doing the things that I enjoyed doing as much. I wasn't getting so much of the mobility because I was so afraid of slipping the disc again, and this fear of like um, all the things that the doctor said that I spoke to. So I just got lost in this little trap of fear, and the pain got worse. And then obviously if that's what you're hyper focusing on, then the brain's gonna start to register that more. Um, and then what can happen is there's almost a psychosomatic connection with things. So you look at a hard bench and you're like, when I sit down there, I will experience pain. So you're likely to experience more pain. Or going into like a long drive, you're almost gearing yourself up to experience that pain. So you're almost sensitizing yourself before it's even happened. And I think that started to happen to me a lot. And I think a turning point was, there's somebody called John Sarno who wrote a book about the mind-body connection. Um, but you know, not everybody is on board with everything that he says. But the basic idea is just that there is that connection, there is that psychosomatic connection. So it's not, I'm not saying pain's all in your head, not that at all, 'cause that's very unhealthy. But the idea that there are factors in our lives that can impact our pain. For example, stress. If we're repressing emotions, so he talks a lot about anger and anxiety. If we repress those emotions, a part of us at a deeper level, our subconscious looks to see in the body where it can repress and store that stuff. So we're quite literally keeping that repressed stuff in the body, and that can cause things like spasms in the body and pain conditions. So when I started to look at it a bit more holistically, and I started my coaching work as well, thinking about the mindset, I thought, what is actually within my control? What's within my agency to change here? And I think that that was a huge takeaway for me, is like I felt like everything was outside of my control and everything was happening to me. And when I started to realize I did have agency, there were things that I could do that started to make things a little bit easier. So thinking about what's in my locus of control.
Hmm. Nice. And in your experience, I guess, of working with people, all right, it will be in a more work environment, is
Mhm.
that, and they may or may not have pain, but do you talk to them about having their own agency and looking at what they can control?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Most of us go through life like being reactive to our inner critic. So like that voice that's very negative. This isn't going to get better. This is only going to get worse. You're not going to be able to do the things that you love. X, Y, Z is going to leave you because of this. But those voices can build up, right? Um, but if we pause and think, who is that voice speaking to, right? That negative inner critic voice. There's an observer there. There's a recipient of that voice. There's a self one and a self two. There's an inner critic, and then there's the voice that that inner critic's talking to. And the more that we can step into that observer space, the more we can separate space between that negative thinking and its impact on us. So how do we go about doing that? Just by becoming aware of when that voice rears its head for a start. So, there it is. When you say, there it is, so it could be that really negative voice, right? It could be, for example, uh, you can't do that long drive because that's going to impact your back pain. Well, there it is. Just observing it. It's not a truth. It's a story that you tell yourself. There it is. And you start to build space between that negativity and yourself. So there's negativity isn't yourself. And so it's leaning, Carol Dweck talks about it as like the fixed and the growth mindset. So it's moving us from this fixed mindset state, which is like, I'm not going to change, things are only going to get worse, et cetera, to this growth mindset state. Well, just because I feel like this now doesn't mean I'm going to feel like this tomorrow. Just because the drive was bad last time doesn't mean the drive will be like that this time. Um, just because this happened to X doesn't mean it's going to happen to me. So we stay within the growth mindset, that state. I think that can be really helpful with all this as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you bring up internal voice, because this is my experience. I don't know if it's true for everyone, and I don't know if it's true for what you've experienced in your coaching, but
Mm.
probably 5 or 6 years ago, or definitely 10 years ago, if someone had said to me, what, talk to me about my, did I have an internal voice, I would be like, sod off. What, am I
Mm.
mental? Like, because I didn't
Mm.
really, there is an internal voice that goes on, when you're thinking about what needs to go on the food shopping list, or, that you're
Yeah.
feeling a bit tired and you want to go to bed. But I never acknowledged that that
Yeah.
was a voice, or that I had some level of control over it. So if someone had said to me about, I just thought they were balmy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
having done the mindset work I've done, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not mad if I find
Yeah.
myself talking to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. We often hear that, don't we? Like voices in our head. What are you talking about? Um, but we all do have that voice, right? We do have a voice. And it's actually, as well, we look at it with a more compassionate lens. It's designed to protect us. It's trying to keep you safe. It's saying, don't go on that long drive because that could cause you pain. don't get in this relationship with this person because they could reject you because of this pain. Don't do this, don't do that. Let's keep you safe. Let's keep you in a box. Let's wrap you up in some cotton wool. So it's trying to keep you safe. It's not trying to sabotage life. If we live by it, it will quite literally consume your whole life. So we have to do something about it. And I think this is the key thing with any of the mindset work is we have to start to get intentional about it, because if we don't, we start to then be reactive to it. And that's where it starts to win, right? So we can even like create simple shifters in the morning. What's the first thing that we will do? We reach for our phones, and that's a cocktail of different things like dopamine, that high, but also cortisol, the stress hormone. So we've got that addictive, you know, cocktail already we're starting with in the morning. And then we start with negativity. This day is going to be hard. This week's going to be hard, whatever that might be. Or my pain's going to be really bad today. And sometimes, you know, people with pain, I can relate to this. You know, it's the first thing we often think of in the morning. But say, what would happen if we go straight to instead gratitude in terms of like, what are three things today that I'm actually genuinely grateful for? What am I genuinely grateful for? Well, I've got a roof over my head. It's sunny outside, and I've got a nice partner, for example, or I've got a dog that I'm going to walk. Like the simplest things, but actually genuinely feeling into how that feels to be grateful. We rarely do that. And I know people are like, oh, gratitude, like it's all airy fairy stuff. But actually, it can quite literally shift your mindset, right? From that really negative space that you can be into that positive space. Something as simple as that can begin to start that shift. And then you can start to notice when those negative thoughts are coming in a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's lovely, and I'm glad you brought it up. I feel like I'm going slightly off piece of what our structure was, but I think it's really interesting that you say that, and that it is really important. There are again, my experience. I feel like journaling or writing things down or gratitude feel
Mm,
very, oh, I don't know, maybe contrite or a bit like whatever.
mm.
And actually it's really important that you find your own way of doing
Yeah.
those things, of being grateful, because there are a million
Yeah.
and one books out there that you could read or fill out or da, but actually coming to it on your own terms of what of how you acknowledge that gratitude
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be like a written list or even saying it out loud. It could just be like on a walk. You're like, I'm actually going to look around today and look at wow, like that's really amazing what I'm looking at, rather than being in my head of how crap the day ahead's going to be, right? It
Yeah,
can really shift the mindset, and that's open to us all, whatever state we're in, like with our pain and anything. Like, I don't say that lightly. I mean, you know, there's wherever we're at, there's a choice to look at something differently, right? And I mean that in the in the most positive way, because that can bring us back our agency. Otherwise, we can become really defeatist. And also compassion, you know, being really kind to ourselves in the process as well. Because there's some days where we're not going to want to do that, and we just want to rant at the world, and that's okay as well. Like, you know, we can almost get into toxic positivity if we're not careful as well. So it's okay to not be okay, as well. Yeah, and
yeah,
listening to the pain, right? Listening to what it's trying to speak to us. Maybe we've cocked up because we didn't get as much sleep, or we ate the thing with all the sugar and that's called inflammation or whatever. And we're just aware of that, and that's okay. So just listening to the pain as well, without letting you control your life.
yeah. Yeah. Uh, yes. And for I appreciate for some people that may be hard to hear when you're in the grips of, but I've been in pain for 5, 10 years, and I'm taking however many, I'm taking however many paracetamol and da, da. I can
Mm,
appreciate that maybe would be hard to hear someone say. And I think in this conversation, neither Max or I is trying to tell everyone this is the one way to do it to fix your pain.
absolutely, yeah,
That's not the case.
yeah,
We all have our own, as Max is clearly alluding to, is we all have our own situations. We're all on different parts of the journey at different times,
mm,
and this is this is part of a holistic approach of, is this, is there some things here that can help us reframe a situation. um yeah, and I guess if I take a question, if I actually take a question that I've listed, um
mm,
and just so maybe someone can feel like they're starting to move in the right direction, what do you see, Max, when someone starts to shift their internal narrative, either from your experience of changing it or from your professional one? What do you start to
Mm.
notice first?
I think people, it happens with hindsight as opposed to in the moments. People suddenly look back at, oh, that's different. I'm thinking about that differently. I'm doing that differently. So it tends to happen with like in a more gentle organic process. It's like quite, um, it's reflective in a way. But it tends to be people just feeling lighter generally because they're not weighed down so much by such negativity in the mindset. More space in their weeks to be able to do the things that they actually want to do. Um, so I think it's a really gentle sort of process how it plays out. Um, and we're not talking about massive upheavals. We're talking about small changes that compound over time. That's what I'm all about. It's not about like, oh, let's shift up this and shift up that. It's like, what's one way we can move the needle like 1% to create change? Because those things add up over time. Um, and I think, most people that come and speak to me, and I was the same when I first spoke to someone, was had this all or nothing thinking. And I think it can feel very much like I either have it or I don't. So I'm either in recovery or I'm not. I'm either better or I'm worse. I'm either on the wagon of going to the gym or I'm off the wagon. And that's really not a helpful way of living, especially when you have a pain condition, right? So it's helping people to find the nuance, find the in between of like checking in, like what did they do themselves this week that's actually a step forward for themselves. Like what have they done actually to show up for themselves and celebrating that as a win and acknowledging that. Um, and where did they experience challenge and what's behind that challenge? Right? It's not as simple as, oh, I just couldn't be bothered. There's often lots that goes on um, behind that. So I think it's getting people to see that there's a middle between the all and the nothing. And that's a learning I've had to go through as well.
Mm.
Because for example, like the 0 to 5K up running, I used to love running. And now I'm still nervous. But I know we've been doing some work together on that, but like I've always been nervous of running because of my back. And so I started that app about 3 times. The third time I started it, I was like, oh, I can't be bothered to do this again. I can't go through this again. The same with gym when I was out of the gym for like 8 months because of my back. I can't be bothered to start all this up again. And that's why I reached out to you because I was like, I don't know if I can do this again. I genuinely don't know if I can go through all this again. It's almost easy just to abandon everything, in terms of like self-care and just do the minimal because I can't go through the turmoil of building myself up and then losing it all again. So I've had to find like the in between. Like it's okay to have the weeks that aren't 10 out of 10. I talk a lot to my clients about like dials, like we can't be on 10 all the time. Like it's okay to have gym on 5 in a week and work be on a 9, or gym be on a 9 and personal social relations on a 3. Like where can you move dials up and down rather than trying to have everything on 10? And that's been
Yeah.
helpful as well.
Yeah. So yes, full disclosure, Max and I have been working together.
Yeah.
Maybe should have said that at the start, but I yeah, listening to you, we started working together, and I wasn't. I was obviously aware of the pain situation you're in, but listening to you talk about it today, there's been more. There was more to it, and
Mm.
not for my own vanity, but that working with a personal trainer was that must have been sounds like it was good for you in terms of being in the grey. Did it help?
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. I think having somebody there, I think you made it fun and accessible again and not a pressure or a burden and allowed me to take at my own pace. And I think that's it. It's having somebody there who's in your corner with it as well, because I think accountability is so important. It's so easy just to say, do you know what, I can't be bothered at the moment. So to have someone there who can help keep you accountable is really, really important. Um, Even if it's a mate, like, but just having somebody there to keep you accountable, is huge. And actually, if we think, like, if we look at the statistics for goal attainment, they skyrocket when you have an accountability buddy. That's why most of us fail our New Year's resolutions because we don't. So yeah.
I regardless of the fact that I am a coach, personal trainer, whatever you want to call it, any hobby, any new skill, any activity that I've ever taken on where there's been a coach, my personal experience is that yes, I've
Mm.
just not excelled is too strong, but just been a lot better, a lot quicker, and it's been enjoyable, I guess, because
Yeah,
you're gaining the skill quickly and you feel like it's going somewhere, you're not banging your head against a brick wall.
yeah. And having someone to celebrate it with as well, right? I mean, even within like friendship groups, you might not have that person. You can go, oh, I've had this massive win this week because I managed to lift this particular weight, right? Especially if we're talking about rehabilitation physio, it's not like, oh, I've lifted, a million weights and it's like it's a very internal thing. Like you might not necessarily see it externally. Um, yeah, that can be huge.
Yeah, it's not like you're in a sport and you've gone to a competition day and the team or the individual sport that you're in has won the tournament or the gold medal or whatever. It's not that. It is just the everyday. But actually, they're quite when someone is in pain. Getting in and out of a chair, being on long car journeys. For
Mm.
some people, it's being on the floor with their grandchildren, being able to play. Actually, those goals are probably more meaningful
Yeah,
than a sports competition because
yeah,
it's a real impact on your life.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's it, isn't it? It's keeping that big why in mind. Why are you doing this? Why are you turning up to the gym? Why are you doing the thing? I think it's just so important to have that in mind. It's like the motivation piece. Because on those cold, dark mornings where you don't want to get in and do the stuff to help support yourself, or where you're not, we do a lot of core stuff. I don't see the results in terms of like physically, so that can be like, well, you do, but like that takes a huge amount of time. Whereas actually internally, what I'm doing is building the muscles around my spine, right, which is important. But because I'm not seeing it, it's like I could give up on this. So it's what's the why behind it as well can be helpful.
And it's little things, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this piece of information, Max. But just to give people like a bit of a visual picture of what that means, not just Max, other people as well. But I have them doing sit to stands to a chair or a box before they squat without anything behind them.
Mm.
Um, and actually even just that journey of being like it feels a bit rehabby to be sitting on a box, and I appreciate that, but it's a layer that we go through because it builds confidence. But then when someone moves to being able to squat to that same depth but without having a chair there, that's a win.
Yeah,
That's self-esteem, self-worth, it's all lifted.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's acknowledging the small wins.
Yeah, it's important. And I'm just becoming aware of the time, and I
Yeah,
want to I want to make sure we leave some time for questions. So if I say the final question, I guess for anyone listening who feels perhaps frustrated or at the beginning of their own reset, what would you want them to take or to know from your own personal journey? What would you say to them?
yeah. I think that the point that you made earlier is a really good one. Like we're all on our own individual journeys, so there's no cookie cutter approach to healing, but there's certainly lots of things that can help you on the journey. And I think the first step is always realizing your own agency, like going back to that locus of control. What is with the situation I find myself in, whether that's daily chronic pain throughout the whole day. I'm so sorry if that's the situation that you're in. If that's the situation you find yourself in, even still, where can I find the autonomy within that situation? Right, even if it's really small to start off with, where is my agency? Because that's how we can create change. Um, I think another part is the resilience piece. I've had so many knocks back and stop and started a million and one times, and sometimes it's been really hard to just be like, can I be bothered anymore? And I don't mean I know for some that is like that is suicidal ideation. That's not what I'm talking about for me personally, but it was kind of like, can I be bothered to do any of the stuff that supports me? And it's easy to get into that thinking of giving up, right? But I think someone once told me, um, you can never go back to where you are because you know too much now. You can never go back to where you are because you know too much now. And I found that a really powerful quote. And the second time I sit my disc and the third time I sit my disc, I always reminded myself of that because although I felt I was back at square one because the pain was exactly the same, blah, 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 blah. In fact, it was worse. I was like, but I do know more now because I've lived with this for longer. I have spoken to more people. I've done more work. I understand it better. Can never go back to the beginning because I do know too much now. And I've added tools in the toolbox along the way. So even though we feel like we can go back to square one, I think remembering you can never really go back to square one because you don't have a time machine, right? It can feel like you are, but unless you have amnesia and you forget everything, you've spoken to people along the way and you've learned stuff. So that's another really important one. And just remembering as well, like self-care is something that can fall to the wayside. It's something that's talked about a lot, but not many of us actually do it and implement it. But unless we start to prioritize it, everything else will take priority. And it's a bit like a Jenga tower. We start taking those bits out. And I've had many weeks like this, even recently, where I like slept a little bit too little, or dropped a day or two in the gym, or I even like didn't go for a week, and feel like I can get away with it. And then the compound effect of all those things is the Jenga tower then falls down because I don't have that support structure. So what are the parts of your self-care practice that you absolutely need? Getting clear on those and making those non-negotiable, even if it's just going for a long walk, your dog, or whatever it is in the woods, or whatever that's different for different people, but making sure you have something that you come back to that you prioritize in the journey. Yeah, and working with the pain, not against it, right? There will be days where you just can't do much, and that's okay as well. Being kind to yourself.
Yeah. Thanks, Max. I feel like we could have you on again.
I'd love to go on again.
I've just written down the topic self-care because I will say it is really lovely. I don't know if everyone feels the same way, but this is my experience. It feels really nice to hear a man talking about self-care. I feel like it sits different. And I'm really interested to get into. I mean, yeah, I was about to say I'm really interested to get into self-care. I do a bit of it, promise.
Mm.
But actually what that looks like and how it looks for different people. But that's potentially for a
Mm.
different day. Before I do the little closing speech, I am just going to drop your coaching link in the chat box. So if anyone wants to read a bit more about you, they absolutely can. But we've had a
Thank you.
few people actually come and join us, Max. I've been letting them in. So I will just take a moment. Does anyone have a question for Max or anything they want to say or share?
I don't bite, I promise.
It's been very interesting. It's lovely to hear someone who's been through what you've been through and how you've come out the other side in such a nice, balanced way.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot, Jan. I really appreciate that.
I
Thank you for
just want
being
to
here.
say thank you very much because that was really informative. I did join a tiny bit late. Um, and my only real question is, which is probably why you're the coach, is employ you. But how do you keep the mindset positive when,
Mm.
life just throws in stuff that just, you're on a good path and then something happens. Like for me, it's only a small thing really, but I've had to have a big growthy thing chopped off my chest yesterday before yesterday. And,
Mm.
12 stitches later, them saying, and you can't do any exercise for 10 days, and you've got to take it really easy for the next 48 hours. And, no stretching, and your stitch, you shouldn't really do exercise until the stitches come out in 12 days. And I'm like, no, but I do a thing, and I'm doing a Goldson, I'm
Mm.
doing a class yesterday evening, and I've just said, no, I can't do that. And although I'm trying really hard, I'm, putting insulating my greenhouse. I'm out in the sunshine. I've got the dog with me, but it's almost
Mm.
like a 20-minute, every 20 minutes thing. No, it's fine. Don't feel bad about it. It's fine. But actually feeling pretty fed up that yet
Yeah,
another thing is, and I'm on a nice, good path, and then boom, something comes
yeah.
along and swipes it. So how do you keep the positivity going?
Yeah, it's a really great point, and thanks so much for sharing that. And it's hard, right? We're humans, and so we can't stay at this like constant state of positivity all the time, and life does happen to us. I think some first of all, like feeling your feelings is a huge one, right? Like allowing that to come through, that frustration, that anger, whatever that is, we can get into the, I need to be positive, I need to reframe it positively. But part of you is annoyed and part of you is fed up and part of you is frustrated as well. So allowing that to come through, but not in a way where you're like sitting and dwelling in it. So one really useful thing, so talking about the body, like the somatic, the soma, we can literally think like, where can I feel, if I put my hand out in front of me, where can I feel this stuff, like this frustration, this anger, whatever it is? Just get curious. Oh, it's in my stomach area, it feels cold, or it's tense in my chest. Like, where can I feel this feeling? And the more that you start to get curious around it, you'll find that the quicker it passes, because you start to process it quicker. And also, you're not then trying to run away from it so much. I'm not saying you are, but just people in general. But we don't try and run away from it so much. We actually befriend it more. Oh, there you are again. It's okay. Let's check in about what you're about. Okay, you're a cold. If I try to give it a color or a pattern, okay, this is what it looks like or feels like to me. So you're objectifying it. That can be really helpful. And then in terms of the actual like positive mindset, there is an acceptance piece, isn't there? You're going to be out of action for a while, and so it's coming back to the acceptance piece. What is within my control? What can I therefore do? But also factoring what do you enjoy? What things do light you up? And what you need right now, which is a hugely important one. Do you need more support from friends and family? Do you need to be connecting with people? So checking in with what you need rather than what you should be doing, or anything else can be helpful. Yeah.
Those things are not my forte.
No. Okay.
What I need and asking for help. No. Not sort of in my vocabulary, but that's very helpful. Thank you. I think partly with me, it's like, they were going to burn something off my skin, and then when I got there, it's full scale, small operation with stitches and God knows what, and so I hadn't prepared myself for that possibility. So I had things in my head, things I was going to do. So it was just that sort of, but sitting with it, because I don't think I've really acknowledged it. I've just been cross and upset. So that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay,
and just
thank you.
just being kind to yourself as much as you can throughout the journey of it as well.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. And appreciate you coming on. And yes, have come on again.
Yay.
I agree. Thanks, Rachel.
Pleasure, Linda. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
And his sisters, Naya and Red, both attend the
I think we've got someone on with a bit of background.
Yeah. Midsummer Murders playing or something.
There we go. Sorry, Faye. I'm not muting you on purpose. Well, I am, but not in a horrible way. So I think, unless there's another burning question coming through, please shout. Or you can always use the chat box, actually. Some people prefer to type the question in. Please do. I've put Max's website in there too. And when I send the replay round, I'll put more of your contact details in as well, Max. So I feel like everyone's taken a lot away from this. Thank you, Max. At the start, we weren't totally sure where we were going to go. Well, we had a plan. I don't know if we've ticked all of our boxes, but to me, it feels like it's been a really good conversation and really talked about some softer, more sensitive skills that sometimes feel a bit uncomfortable. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to come on and to see everybody and hear everyone's questions.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Was there anything else I was going to say? No, I don't think so. So I shall make sure this recording comes around. See you all again soon. There will be another one coming up, and I'll get Max booked for 2026.
Lovely. That sounds very positive.
Talk about self-care.
Yeah. Right then. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Max, I will end the call and then I'll give you a ring.
Yeah. Okay.